Hello and welcome. This is part 21 of 32 of my NFL ranking series, and for this one we have the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles finished last year at 9-8, and they lost in the wild card to the Buccaneers. This team caught everyone off guard, I feel like, last year, as they started off pretty bad, but then they ended up scrapping together a pretty good season towards the end of the season. They just managed to make it to the wild card. They basically changed their identity, I think, in the middle of the season and became more of a run-heavy team over a pass-heavy team. And this was one of the main reasons that they ended up getting over the hump. And then now, looking into this year, it's basically Jalen Hurts' time. They've built a team basically around him. They've gone all in around him. So now it's going to be interesting to see what Jalen Hurts can do with this team moving forward. Like I said, looking into last year, they had the 9 wins, and they lost pretty bad to the Buccaneers. I mean, it is the Buccaneers in the wild card. But, I mean, if you look at their schedule, I mean, while they didn't, beat anybody, I would say that's too impressive, they did maybe have 1 or 2 wins that are pretty impressive. I mean, they beat the teams they had to beat. They beat Atlanta, beat Carolina, beat Detroit. They beat all the lower tier teams. I mean, if you look, for example, San Francisco was a playoff team, lost to them. Cowboys playoff team, lost to them. Chiefs playoff team, lost to them, and so on. I mean, so if you looked, I mean, they lost a lot. I mean, even if it's close or not, they lost basically to all the good teams, and then they kind of beat up on the bad teams. And due to that, they found themselves making the playoffs. But yeah, I mean, basically it was just basically a year for Jalen Hurts to kind of figure everything out. And I mean, he played pretty impressive throughout the year. There were some weeks where he had his ups and downs, but I mean, for the most part, that was especially towards the end of the season, it got really good. But a little bit towards the beginning, it started off a little bit rough, but then basically, yeah, towards the end, they kind of changed their identity, kind of fit towards him a little bit more, and then he seemed to take a little bit of a step forward. And yeah, looking into their team this year, I mean, they got A.J. Brown from Tennessee, so now they'll have Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins, and A.J. Brown as their 3 wide receivers. They also have Zach Pascal from the Colts, and then they also got Jalen Reagor. And then they're all on. They still got the big names like Jason Kelce and Lane Johnson. Then at tight end, they got Dallas Goedert, and then QB Jalen Hurts still, and then their running backs are Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell. Defensively, they have Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, Hassan Reddick. Yeah, I mean, looking at this team, they are. I mean, this team. Looking at this team now, I mean, they've taken a huge step up from last year. I would say, I mean, getting A.J. Brown was huge for the wide receivers, as now they have that stud wide receiver that they've basically been missing for the past few years. Devontae Smith was good, but he was still a rookie, so I mean, there was still a lot to prove with him. So while I know he's younger, getting a veteran-tested wide receiver like A.J. Brown is pretty good for the team, because now Devontae Smith should have a little less pressure off him, since A.J. Brown will probably be the focus, and that should help Devontae Smith take a step up towards next year. But yeah, when it's basically coming to look at this team, it's all on Jalen Hurts, as it is with a lot of these teams now with their younger quarterbacks. It's basically going to come down to how he can play this year. This is basically his year to prove that he belongs in the NFL. I mean, he's shown that he can make some plays here and there, but basically when it's coming into this year, they're going to have to do a little bit more. And he's going to have to prove a little bit to prove that they belong here. But yeah, if you look at their schedule, I mean, not the hardest schedule in the world. Their hardest games are probably Vikings, Arizona, Dallas, Colts, Green Bay, and then, I mean, realistically, that's probably it. I mean, if you look at their schedule, I mean, this is pretty much supposed to be their year. Everyone, it's basically looking at their depth chart and then looking what they got. Basically looking at their depth chart and then looking at the schedule, I mean, they should win a lot of games. I mean, this could easily be, I think this should easily be this should almost be a 10-win team almost. I mean, just looking at their schedule. They don't play a lot, they don't play a lot of good teams. Detroit is meh. They're better, but they're still meh. I mean, Washington's still, I mean, they're still trying to kind of figure out themselves. Jacksonville's not that good. I mean, Houston's not that good. And then New York, Chicago, meh. So, I mean, this team really has a good chance of winning the division. It's all basically going to come down to, the Cowboys. That's the biggest thing. If they can beat the Cowboys this year twice, then I think it's basically the division is theirs to have. If they split, I think potentially there's a chance that, the Cowboys might be able to edge them out in the division. Overall, though, I mean, this is honestly, the division for the Eagles to lose almost at this point. It's basically because, like I said, I don't think the Commanders are going to be much of a threat to them this year. So I wouldn't really have to, worry about them or worry about what they're going to do. And then New York isn't going to be much of a threat again this year. They're still trying to kind of figure themselves out. So when it comes down to it, it's basically going to come down to, can the Eagles beat the Cowboys, and then can they play good enough to get a bunch of wins? Because if you look at their schedule, they should have a bunch of wins this year. So yeah, when it comes to the Eagles this year, I mean, They should, like, they have an easier schedule, so they should have a lot of wins. It's just basically going to come down to what can Jalen Hurts do, and can Jalen Hurts be the thing that they need in this offense. They overpaid Carson Wentz a few years ago, and then ever since then, they've been kind of like trying to find their guy. They had Nick Foles for a bit, and then he obviously won them the Super Bowl, but then that didn't work out when they tried to go run it back. So basically, like, this can potentially be Jalen Hurts' team, and Jalen Hurts can take the next step forward. I think this team will be about like a 9 to 10 win team. This is about I have this team ranked 12th, so they're just outside the top 10, and I mean it's them and the Cowboys for the division when it comes down to it. So I mean, regardless, this team should be a playoff team, even if they lose the division, based on like how many wins they should get. But there's a chance that they could have home field advantage if they can just find a way to beat the Cowboys and take back this division.